started as awkward auditions and harmless stage mistakes quickly turned into something far more shocking. From terrifying falls caught live on camera to performances that descended into complete chaos, these talent show accidents stunned millions and left audiences speechless. But we're only getting started. As the countdown continues, the incidents become stranger, more disturbing, and harder to believe than anything that came before. And by the end, you might never look at live talent shows the same way again. Number 34. Last-second water escape. A year before this performance, Pedro Volta had already experienced something most people would consider a reason never to attempt the stunt again. During an earlier escape, a tangled strap trapped him underwater and left him in cardiorespiratory arrest for 4 minutes before paramedics revived him. But Volta's response was not to retire from dangerous escapes. He tried again. This time, he brought the escape to the stage of Spain's Got Talent, climbing into a water tank in a straitjacket with padlocks securing the lid above him. As the live audience and judges watched, he methodically freed himself, one restraint at a time. But near the end, one lock refused to cooperate. That tiny mechanical failure suddenly became the most important thing in the room. Volta was running out of oxygen, and every second spent fighting the lock brought him closer to another medical emergency. As his movements became slower, tension spread through the audience, while the host began calling for medical personnel. Eventually, Volta could no longer continue and was helped out of the tank. He survived the performance, but this was the last time he attempted that particular escape. Volta never performed it again and eventually retired the stunt for good. Number 33. The Rollerblade Fall. Haroon rolled onto the Turkey's Got Talent stage, preparing to launch himself off a ramp in a dangerous extreme sports stunt. He was expected to clear the ramp and land safely on a mat below, but what no one in the audience realized was just how dangerous the stunt really was. For the first few seconds, there was nothing to suggest trouble. He hit the ramp and launched into the air, and everything looked perfect. Then his landing went horribly wrong. Haroon missed the mat and came down heavily on his back and neck, his body twisting awkwardly as he struck the floor. The reaction from the audience changed instantly. Excitement vanished. Even the judges stopped reacting when Haroon didn't get back up. His teammates rushed onto the stage before medical personnel could reach him, and a neck brace was eventually fitted before he was carried away on a stretcher. Haroon survived without permanent, life-changing injuries, but the accident immediately raised an uncomfortable question. How was a stunt this dangerous allowed to take place with so little protective gear between the performer and the floor? Number 32. The record-breaking dive of doom. Standing more than 42 meters above Minnehaha Falls, Valley Graham prepared to chase a world record with a landing that demanded absolute precision. As cameras rolled, he launched into open air, his body following the trajectory he needed, but then his entry went wrong. He hit the water violently and disappeared beneath the surface. For several seconds, there was no immediate sign that he had survived. Then somehow he resurfaced, bleeding from the ear, badly injured and running almost entirely on adrenaline. But incredibly, he didn't immediately go to a hospital. Valley climbed out of the canyon and walked more than a kilometer. Doctors later revealed the full extent of his injuries: a fractured skull, broken vertebrae, a shattered sternum, and a severe concussion. Yet somehow the jump had officially broken the record, making the achievement all the more terrifying when you realize just how close he came to losing his life. Number 31. Cryptic injury during the season. 12 finals of American Ninja Warrior, Jessie Graff reached the falling shelves, one of the course's most demanding obstacles. She jumped toward the next hold, but missed and crashed hard onto the platform below. The impact left her immediately checking her shoulder, as if she knew something was wrong. At first, the injury looked like a painful but routine obstacle course accident, but Graff's problems went deeper than they appeared. She had already been dealing with an ACL injury from an earlier competition, and the damage from the fall made things so much worse that she would eventually require surgery, forcing her to miss the following season. What looked like one bad landing on television ultimately kept one of the show's most recognizable competitors out of competition for months. Number 30. Food intoxication. Pan Xiaoting built a huge online following through live streams, where she ate enormous amounts of food in front of viewers. Her broadcasts became increasingly extreme, with some sessions lasting for hours. During one marathon live stream in 2024, Pan continued eating despite appearing visibly unwell. She became pale and sweaty as viewers watched the broadcast unfold. Then, without warning, the live stream ended. Pan later died after suffering severe complications linked to extreme overeating. She was 24 years old. Number 29. Buried alive escape. 2 years before Bill Shirk attempted his buried alive escape, another escape artist had already died trying to perform the same stunt. Shirk decided to attempt it anyway. On Halloween night in 1992, Shirk was locked in handcuffs and chains, lowered 6 feet underground inside a plexiglass coffin, and buried beneath tons of dirt and nearly 7 tons of cement. He expected to escape within minutes, but then something went horribly wrong. Heavy rainfall had soaked the ground, making the dirt far heavier than expected. As the weight above him increased, the coffin began collapsing around his body. Trapped underground in complete darkness, Shirk managed to free himself from the restraints, but he was still buried beneath the crushing weight. With his air running out, he called for help. The crew above desperately dug toward him as the collapsed coffin threatened to bury him completely. After several terrifying minutes, they finally pulled him to safety. Shirk survived the stunt, but the escape had gone so badly that the planned performance was abandoned before he could complete it. Number 28. Circus Netfall. At the Great Moscow State Circus, Kenyan acrobat Carl Christopher Kazunga stood nearly 85 feet above the arena floor, preparing for the stunt that had defined his career, the drop. Every part of the routine had been tested, and the safety net below him was supposed to catch him if anything went wrong. As the music built and the packed arena watched, Carl launched himself into the air. For a brief moment, everything went exactly as planned. Then he hit the safety net. It tore beneath him. Carl crashed through the opening and slammed onto the floor below. The excitement inside the arena vanished as spectators watched medics rush toward him. Carl survived the fall but suffered a broken neck and spent months recovering from his injuries. Number 27. Arrow Misfire. Sword Swallower. Ryan Stock stood on the America's Got Talent stage with a small target in his mouth, while his fiancée, Amber Lynn Walker, aimed a flaming arrow at him from several feet away. The stunt had been rehearsed thousands of times, but during the live performance, something suddenly went wrong. The arrow's nock broke mid-flight, sending the flaming shaft veering sideways and straight into Ryan's neck. The judges and audience gasped as he staggered backward, clutching his throat while flames briefly singed his shirt. For a moment, nobody knew how serious the injury was. Ryan insisted he was okay, but Howie Mandel immediately called for a medic to check him. Host Nick Cannon later said he feared the worst, while Simon Cowell described it as one of the most stressful moments he had experienced on the panel. Ryan was indeed okay and returned to performing after the accident. Number 26. The Bloody Run. During her 7th season on American Ninja Warrior, Michelle Warnke was only 2 obstacles into her Cincinnati qualifying run when the ring swing slammed directly into the area above her left eye. Blood immediately poured down her face and streaked across her cheek. The commentators and audience watched as Michelle reached the next obstacle, expecting her to stop and seek medical attention. Instead, she kept going, wiping blood from her face as she moved from one obstacle to the next. She eventually reached the buzzer with blood still running down her face. Weeks later, Michelle returned to competition and became only the 2nd woman ever to complete a city finals course. Number 25. Car Jump Accident. On July 4, 2001, Bubba Blackwell faced 35,000 spectators for a terrifying challenge, jumping 22 cars on a Harley-Davidson XR 750. The atmosphere was electric as thousands of fans cheered him on, but the horse racing track was too soft and unstable for a stunt that required a precise landing. Blackwell knew the surface wasn't right, but he continued. He accelerated toward the ramp and launched into the air. The motorcycle came in too low and slammed into the edge of the landing platform, throwing Blackwell over the handlebars and onto the track. Paramedics rushed him to the hospital, where he was placed in a coma with severe head injuries. Blackwell survived the crash, but it kept him away from motorcycle jumping for a time. He eventually returned to stunt riding and made another major jump in 2003. Number 24. Crazy Ankle Disaster. Travis Rosen had reached the American Ninja Warrior finals 8 times, but during the 2018 national finals, one mistake on the double dipper nearly ended his career. Rosen lost his grip near the end of the obstacle and instinctively threw out his leg to brace for the landing. His ankle folded violently when he hit the water. When he resurfaced, it was immediately clear that something was seriously wrong. Doctors later confirmed that Rosen had severely broken his ankle. After surgery, he was warned that he might never run again. Less than a year later, Rosen returned to American Ninja Warrior, qualified for his 9th straight national finals, and faced the double dipper again. This time, he cleared it. Number 23. Concussed on Camera. During the American Ninja Warrior Oklahoma City finals, Maggie Thorne was sprinting across the surfboards when her footing suddenly disappeared. She went face first into the course and was immediately disoriented. Thorne later said she couldn't remember what happened immediately after the fall. Her last clear memory was standing at the starting line, and her next was being back home. Doctors diagnosed her with a mild traumatic brain injury, and the accident forced her to spend the following year undergoing rehabilitation and therapy. Number 22. The ladder act with nothing to hold it up. Uzziah Novus brought a single unsupported ladder onto the America's Got Talent stage, with no cables or visible supports holding it in place. He climbed nearly 15 feet into the air, balancing on the ladder's narrow top while attempting to hook a hoop beneath his foot and lean backward into open space. The audience watched in silence as every movement threatened to send the ladder crashing down. Then it suddenly tilted backward, leaving Uzziah suspended in midair with nothing to grab. A split second later, he crashed onto the stage below. The theater went silent as Uzziah got back up and asked the judges for another chance. They didn't give him a reset, but years later, he returned and successfully completed the same stunt. Number 21. Fire breather sabotaged. In April 2018, British fire performer Sophie Lee was performing at a major event in Chicago when a blast of air from the venue's air conditioning system suddenly changed the direction of the flames. Instead of being pushed away from her, the fire was blown straight toward her face. In seconds, Lee was on fire. She shut her eyes and tried to stay calm as she made her way toward medical assistance. Lee suffered severe burns to her face and throat and spent a month in a U.S. hospital recovering from the injuries. Number 20. Falling human chandelier. On May 4, 2014, families packed into the Ringling Brothers Circus expecting acrobatics and big-top entertainment. Instead, they witnessed 8 performers fall nearly 40 feet from the air. The women were suspended by their hair, forming a rotating stunt known as the human chandelier. As they spun above the audience, everything appeared controlled, but the rig depended on a single steel carabiner connecting it to the ceiling system. It was reportedly loaded incorrectly, putting pressure on the clip from a direction it wasn't designed to handle. Then it snapped. The entire human chandelier plunged nearly 40 feet, with the performers crashing into another acrobat before hitting the arena floor. The audience erupted in panic as emergency crews rushed into the ring. Several performers suffered broken bones, spinal injuries, and internal trauma. The accident left multiple performers facing lengthy recoveries. Number 19. Sean Bryan's bloody finish. Known to fans as the Papal Ninja for his community work, Sean Bryan was closing in on a spot in the American Ninja Warrior finals when the drop zone suddenly went wrong. The rotating bars slammed into his head twice in rapid succession, opening a wound that sent blood streaming down his face. Bryan barely stopped, wiping the blood from his face before moving on to the next obstacle. Blood continued dripping into his eye as he approached the warped wall, making the climb even more difficult. But he kept going. Bryan reached the top of the warped wall and completed the course with blood still running down his face. Number 18. X Games fall. At the 2007 X Games, Jake Brown dropped into a massive mega ramp, facing an 84-foot course where one mistake could end everything. Thousands watched as he built speed, cleared the gap, and landed an incredible 720 spin. The crowd erupted. Then Brown climbed toward the top of the towering quarter pipe for another trick, and his skateboard slipped away beneath him. Suddenly, he was falling nearly 45 feet with nothing to break his descent. He slammed into the wooden ramp with such force that both shoes flew off. The arena went silent. For several seconds, Brown didn't move, and many feared the crash had killed him. But Brown eventually stood up and walked away. He had suffered fractures to his wrist and spine, a bruised lung, liver damage, and a serious concussion. Years later, Brown returned to the same ramp and won gold there. Number 17. The golden buzzer after the fall. Sebastian and Sonia stepped onto America's Got Talent with an aerial routine built around trust, timing, and precision. But just moments into their audition, a mistimed release sent Sonia crashing onto the stage in front of the judges and a stunned audience. The impact immediately changed the mood in the theater. The judges looked alarmed, while Sebastian rushed to Sonia and checked on her. For a moment, it wasn't clear whether she could continue. Instead of abandoning the audition, Sebastian changed the routine around Sonia's condition, and the pair continued performing. They finished the act in front of the same audience that had just watched Sonia fall. The judges ultimately gave the pair the golden buzzer, sending them straight through to the live shows. Number 16. Dangling above death. High above a massive ravine in China, 6th-generation tightrope performer Iskayer Vubulwasimu stepped onto a thin steel wire with no harness or safety net. His challenge was to walk backward across a 700-meter wire while blindfolded. For nearly 50 minutes, he carefully worked his way across the cable as strong winds sent it swaying beneath his feet. Hundreds of feet below him was open air and jagged terrain. With the finish finally within reach, the wire shifted beneath him. His balancing pole dipped, and Isakayer suddenly vanished from the cable in front of the crowd. He plunged nearly 200 meters into the ravine below. But instead of hitting the rocks directly, he crashed through trees and bamboo that broke his fall. When rescuers finally reached him, they found that he had survived with only minor injuries. Number 15. The Trapeze Act. Husband and wife duo Tice Nielsen and Mary Wolfe Nielsen brought fire, height, and a blindfold into their America's Got Talent trapeze routine. Mary balanced blindfolded on Tice's hands high above the stage, relying entirely on his grip to keep her steady. Partway through the routine, Mary suddenly lost her balance and slipped from his hands, falling toward the stage below. Gasps erupted throughout the theater as she disappeared from view. The judges and audience waited to see whether the safety mat would catch her. It did. Mary hit the mat hard, but avoided what could have been a serious injury. Tice immediately rushed toward her as the audience watched, and the couple eventually walked away from the accident largely unharmed. Number 14. Double car crash. On October 14, 2021, escapologist Jonathan Goodwin rehearsed a stunt for America's Got Talent, extreme that would become one of the franchise's worst accidents. Suspended 70 feet in the air in a straitjacket, he was supposed to free himself between two swinging cars before they collided, then drop safely onto an air mattress below. The timing failed completely. The cars slammed together with Goodwin trapped between them, bursting into flames before he fell roughly 40 feet, missing the mattress and striking the ground headfirst. Crew members who witnessed the impact feared he had died. Goodwin survived, but the injuries were devastating. He suffered severe spinal damage, third-degree burns, and injuries that ultimately required the removal of a kidney and left him permanently paralyzed. Production was halted, and Goodwin later sued the network, alleging that producers had prioritized spectacle over safety. Number 13. Wipeout's Darkest Day. For years, Wipeout was known for giant red balls, brutal obstacles, and contestants crashing into water while millions watched from home. Most runs ended with little more than bruises and embarrassment. Then, in November 2021, Michael Paredes, a 38-year-old husband and father from California, took on the show's reboot. He completed the course and crossed the finish line as cameras recorded what appeared to be a normal ending. Moments later, Paredes began experiencing severe chest pain and showed signs of distress. Medical staff rushed to help as filming stopped and the atmosphere changed completely. He was taken to a nearby hospital but died the following day after suffering cardiac arrest. Reports later indicated that Paredes had an undiagnosed heart condition. Number 12. Wheel of Destiny Fall. On July 21, 2012, Cyrus Knock climbed the Wheel of Destiny at the Barnstable County Fair in Massachusetts, nearly 30 feet above the ground with no safety net or harness. Born into the Knock Circus family, Cyrus had spent his life performing dangerous stunts like this one. At first, everything looked controlled. Cyrus moved across the spinning steel structure as it rotated higher and faster above the crowd. Then, without warning, he lost his footing and slipped from the wheel. His body slammed into part of the metal frame before he fell toward the ground. The fairground erupted in screams before falling silent as spectators waited to see what had happened. Cyrus survived but suffered a collapsed lung, cracked ribs, crushed vertebrae, and a spinal fracture. Number 11. The show Japan Once Forgotten. Japanese game shows have staged some bizarre challenges, but one contestant's accident turned a ridiculous game into a medical emergency. The contestant was strapped to a rotating pole as part of a challenge where a wrong answer triggered the mechanism to spin and wrap him tightly in a cloth-like material. At first, the stunt looked more absurd than dangerous. Then the mechanism malfunctioned. The contestant became trapped as crew members rushed onto the set to stop the machine and free him. What was supposed to be a game had suddenly become a dangerous situation unfolding in front of the cameras. The incident raised serious questions about how the stunt had been designed and why the contestant was left vulnerable to a mechanical failure like this. Number 10. Water Drinking Contest. A radio station in Sacramento held a contest in which participants had to drink increasing amounts of water without using the bathroom. 28-year-old Jennifer Strange entered because she wanted to win a Nintendo Wii for her 3 children. As the contest continued, the participants were pushed to keep drinking while their bodies struggled to process the excess water. Witnesses later said Jennifer appeared increasingly uncomfortable, but she continued taking part. Eventually, she was eliminated and went home. Hours later, Jennifer died from water intoxication, a potentially fatal condition caused by drinking too much water in a short period. Number 9. The 1 centimeter mistake. Nearly 20 feet above the stage at Portland, Oregon's Expo Center, Cirque du Soleil aerialist Maria Konfektova was performing inside an aerial hoop during a show of Kuza. There was no safety net beneath her. Then, in the middle of the routine, Confectiva suddenly lost her grip and fell hard onto the stage, striking her head on impact. Blood appeared on her face as the performance stopped and medical personnel rushed to her. She was taken to the hospital and monitored by the production's medical team for several hours. The accident ended her performance that night, but she survived the fall. Number 8. End of the perfect record. The audience watched as Sarah Guillot was lifted nearly 94 feet above the stage during the climactic battle scene of Cirque du Soleil's KR in Las Vegas. She was performing as part of the show's final sequence when, without warning, the wire supporting her gave way. Guillot plunged the entire distance in front of the live audience. The performance stopped immediately as crew members rushed to help her, and she was taken to a nearby hospital. She was pronounced dead that night. Investigators later determined that she had been hoisted too quickly, placing extreme stress on the cable until it failed. Her death was the first onstage performer fatality in Cirque du Soleil's 29-year history. The show was suspended for more than 2 weeks, and the scene was permanently removed. Number 7. Drowning caught on camera. In 2009, Clear Shampoo filmed a promotional competition in Bangkok, Thailand, featuring physically demanding challenges designed to test contestants' strength and endurance. Among them was 32-year-old Saad Khan from Pakistan. One challenge required contestants to swim across a dark, murky lake while carrying heavy backpacks. The extra weight made swimming difficult, and the poor visibility made it hard to see what was happening beneath the surface. Then Saad disappeared underwater. Crew members immediately began searching for him as the situation turned into an emergency. Divers were eventually brought in, but hours passed before Saad's body was recovered. Number 6. The net mishap. The human cannonball stunt had been performed countless times, but during a daredevil stunt show in Kent, England, a routine launch turned fatal. A 23-year-old performer was fired from the cannon toward a safety net positioned below. The launch went as planned, but the net failed when he hit it, sending him crashing through onto the ground. He suffered severe head and back injuries and was airlifted to a hospital. Despite treatment, he later died from his injuries. Number 5. Spleen Prize. MTV's The Challenge built its reputation on brutal physical competitions, but during the 2015 Bloodline season, one challenge nearly cost Tony Raines his life. In Meet Me Halfway, competitors had to leap between moving platforms suspended above water. Tony made the jump, but hit the hard edge of a platform with tremendous force, taking the impact directly to his stomach. At first, Tony thought he was simply bruised and tried to continue, but his condition soon worsened, and crew members and medics rushed him for emergency treatment. Doctors discovered that Tony had ruptured his spleen and was suffering from several pints of internal bleeding. He needed emergency surgery, and doctors had to remove his spleen. Number 4. Flying Wallendas. The Wallenda family returned to the high wire in Sarasota, Florida in February 2017 for a stunt that put 8 performers on a single cable. They climbed onto one another's shoulders, forming a human pyramid 25 feet above the ground. The formation demanded precise coordination, and for several tense moments, everything held together. Then the pyramid shifted. The performers began tumbling from the wire while others desperately clung to the cable above. Lejana Wallenda suffered serious facial fractures, while another family member sustained injuries that caused lasting mobility problems. The accident ended the performance, but the Wallendas returned to the high wire afterward. Number 3. The Exploding Coffin. Bello Knock had spent months training with his daughter Annalise for a dangerous America's Got Talent act called the Exploding Coffin. The stunt involved a large box rigged with explosives, with no safety net beneath it. But days before the live broadcast, disaster struck during rehearsal. Bello seriously injured his back while attempting the stunt and was rushed to the hospital. He was left unable to perform alongside his daughter. Annalise decided to continue without him. During the live show, she stepped into the exploding coffin alone, blindfolded, and completed the escape in front of the judges and audience. Bello watched from his hospital bed as his daughter finished the stunt without him. Number 2. Jackass Fatal Crash. Ryan Dunn became one of the most recognizable faces of Jackass, where he built a reputation for performing dangerous stunts and taking part in extreme pranks on camera. But in 2011, Dunn's death had nothing to do with a stunt for the show. After spending the evening with friends, he drove his Porsche late at night in Pennsylvania. The car left the road at high speed, struck a tree, and burst into flames. Dunn and his passenger, Zachary Hartwell, died in the crash. Emergency crews arrived at the scene, but neither man survived. Dunn had spent years appearing to put his life at risk for entertainment. His fatal crash happened away from the cameras, making it a very different ending from the stunts that had made him famous. Number 1. A GT sword and chain ordeal. Sword swallower Andrew Stanton returned to America's Got Talent's live rounds with an act that combined several dangerous stunts. He first inserted a motorized metal spring through his nose and out through his mouth before swallowing a sword. The routine became even more extreme when Stanton attached chains to his eye sockets using suction devices. His assistant was connected to the chains beneath him, leaving Stanton supporting the weight through the apparatus attached to his face. By the end of the performance, Stanton was visibly struggling to breathe and gasping heavily as the judges watched. The act ended without a major injury, but the strain was obvious even before he left the stage. Thanks for watching. Check out the videos on screen now for more stories like this one.